Ladies and gentlemen, finally, our very last session, Future Tasks of Green Growth Summit 2018 has just officially opened. Please give a warm round of applause for distinguished moderator Kim Sang-hyuk and all panels of closing session.
Thank you. Glad to see you again. Thank you for staying with us. As I said earlier, we gladly took the risk to have the last session. And I'm happy there are so many people still with us. So we made the right choice. And I do think that this last session we have today for our conference is really, truly meaningful, because this is about concluding today's talk and showing the next direction for our common action. Especially, as I said before, Korea attended the P4G summit. P4G means Partnering for Green Growth and Global Goals. It's a kind of combination of Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals. And we are going to talk about the key outcomes of the P4G and the future tasks for us to do for our sustainable future. For this session, we have invited wonderful people. Firstly, from my immediate left is Honorable, well-respected Ambassador for Climate Change of Korea, Mr. Yu Yeon-chul. Please. I have known Ambassador Yu for almost 10 years, and I'm truly happy to say he's really committed to the matters of global commons. And the second speaker, I regard him as Korea's ambassador, but he is Ambassador Thomas Lehmann from Denmark, which hosted that historic P4G summit. Please welcome him. And another gentleman I'd like to introduce to you is Pin Mortensen, who is the Executive Director of State of Green of Denmark. State of Green is a public-private partnership platform that is making a lot of things. And I'm truly envious of State Green. Korea should have a platform like this. And the lady is the CEO of the Kolong Eco One, Ms. Lee Soo-young. She has been with environmental business for a long, long time, for more than 1 decade. And she attended the P4G summit representing the Korea's private sector. And I believe she would share a valuable experience and lessons she gained throughout the P4G and throughout her own business. She is running a sustainability-related business. So we will let you know shortly. So please welcome CEO Lee Soo-young. And last but least, we have a gentleman whose name is Lao Blaxiker, who got his PhD from Copenhagen University. Copenhagen University is more than 500 years old university, one of the best university in Europe and in the world. And he got that doctoral degree by writing a paper on green growth. Now he is a key researcher of Nordic Institute of Asian Studies and an adjunct professor of the Chinese Ocean University, right? Okay. So he'll be talking about the future of the Korea's and Denmark relation. So firstly, I like to hear, we like to know more about the key outcomes of the P4G from the ambassador Thomas Raman directly. So, Thomas, what was P4G all about? I think you may need this one.
Thank you, Professor Kim.
We are supposed to have some slides. Okay. Okay. Yep.
Yes, but look, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me and to give a short introduction to P4G. And you mentioned its importance, and I can only stress that it is of huge importance what the P4G is all about. This is a group of countries that came together last year, Denmark, Korea leading the way really here in establishing a partnership among first 7, now 9 countries, with the aim of trying to deliver very concretely on the Paris climate goals, but also on the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. P4G, as you rightly mentioned, Professor, stands for Partnering for Green Growth and the Global Goals. And the very basis of P4G is to pursue and to develop and to scale public-private partnerships. Mm-hmm. And why is this important? It's important because the public sector, we know, cannot do and do not have the solution by itself. The development, the innovation, the creativity is in the private sector. So establishing these public-private partnership is of fundamental importance. And the P4G is looking on 5 concrete areas: food and agriculture, water, energies, cities, and circular economy. So these are the 5 SDG goals that the P4G is focusing on. The summit in Copenhagen gathered more than 800 participants from 53 countries, heads of states of government, including President Moon Jae-in of Korea, but also a number of global CEOs and green growth champions from both public and the private sector. And what they agreed on in Copenhagen was not only to point to very successful public-private partnership and to give awards and to promote that, but also to set a very clear commitment. And that was stated the Copenhagen commitment. A very clear commitment that we need urgent leadership. Again, not only from government, but from the private sector and civil society. Recognition that no country, no actor can do this by themselves. I think all of us in this room know that. That is why the partnership is so important. And again, bringing together the public, the governments, the private sector, civil society in one big melting pot and making them come up with new innovative ideas. One of the key messages, and that was also repeated in the session earlier, was that this is no longer business as usual. We can no longer look at this as we have done in the past. We need unusual solutions. We need unusual initiatives. And that's one of the benefits of the P4G is that by bringing people together from different backgrounds, you can create this dynamism of finding new, unusual solutions to very, very important global problems. So P4G recognized a lot of different partnership in developing countries, touching on energy, plastic, and food waste, for example. And the next step is to follow up on these concrete initiatives, to keep, so to speak, the momentum that has been created in Copenhagen, to keep that going, and to expand partnerships to bring in more countries, governments, institutions, private sector into the P4G, and to really strengthening and deepening the partnerships. Next summit will be in 2020. We hope that perhaps Korea will be sufficiently persuaded to perhaps use this opportunity to take on the leadership that Korea is already showing and bring the P4G to Korea. I think that will be a huge achievement. And also to highlight once more that when we talk about green growth, and that was, I think, a very, very important conclusion out of Copenhagen, is that when we talk about green growth, we also talk about green growth being very good business. That is why the CEOs of global companies come to events like this and share their knowledge, because they can see a business opportunity. They can actually make money. And I think this is one of the drivers in creating these partnerships. Copenhagen was a great success. We can scale market-driven solutions in different areas. Business sees opportunities, and by this we can deliver concrete results on the Paris Climate Agreement and also on the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations again for the great success and great contribution to the world by hosting that P4G. So P4G is in the end about new business opportunity for our sustainable future. It's a shift from BAU, business as usual, to business as wanted, BAW. Well, actually, I made that term, BAW, and I asked Professor Christensen, does it sound like a Congolish, Korean English? And she said, it is quite okay. Thank you for your kind comment. She is a native speaker. She studied Harvard when she was a graduate school, undergraduate school. So she speaks perfect English, and she said it is okay to talk about business as wanted. Okay, and as Ambassador Lehman said, Korea is an essential partner for making P4G successful. So I'd like to give the floor to Ambassador Yu, that what would be the Korea's takeaway by attending the P4G? What would be the direction for the Korea to take in the future from the Korea's perspective?
Yes, please. Yes, please. And Ambassador Thomas Lehmann gave us the brief account of the P4G and the first P4G summit meeting. And he mentioned the P4G is a new and unusual solution. And Dr. Kim described it as the BAW, business as wanted. But the Prime Minister of Denmark described it as business as unusual solution. Yeah. And the P4G summit meeting was held in Copenhagen last month with success. And our Korean President Moon Jae-in have attended this meeting and made a key speech. And I have also attended this meeting. And if you ask my impression about this P4G summit meeting, in short, then I'd like to give you my personal impression about P4G with two things. One is I fully enjoyed this first P4G summit meeting. Mm-hmm. The various participants from various countries, participants from various, so many industries, from the civil societies joined this meeting. And I have attended so many summit meetings, but this is the first and the only summit meeting which was not boring.
How about today's conference?
It's just like a festival.
All right, great.
Yeah. So Denmark showed us the new model of summit meeting. And the second one is, I have one more wish in my life. I'd like to live until 89 years old. You might be curious about my the wish. This means I was told that Denmark has its national vision to become independent of fossil fuel by 2050.
Yes.
And at the year of 2050,
Amazing.
I will be 89 years old. So I'd like to live until 2050, and I'd like to witness whether or not Denmark will
see that
realize
happy ending?
this
Okay.
national vision. Having said that,
Right.
Ambassador Lehman focused on P4G, and I'd like to focus on the perspective of Korea about the P4G.
Yes.
So I skipped one. Yeah. So I'd like to say that the purpose of P4G is to address climate change and achieve SDGs. So we have suffered the hot waves this summer and the wildfires in the other parts of the world. So now the response to climate change is critical and imperative for all. The Korea is not the exception. So I'd like to say Korea is fully supporting the purpose of P4G. And the methodology of P4G is, as Ambassador Lehman mentioned, the public-private partnership focusing on action. So I mean, it is the government who provides direction and the guideline through policies, and it is the civil society who provides the creative ideas, and it is the business sector, private sector, who takes action through investment. So PPP is the driving force of P4G, I do believe, and I'd like to say that PPP is not the best option, but the only option in addressing climate change and achieving SDGs. So Korea is fully supporting the methodology of P4G. And the ambition of P4G is a global initiative to become the world-class and the world's leading forum. I didn't mention here, initiated by not so big country, not so huge country, but so smart and middle-sized country. So Korea is fully supporting the ambition of P4G. And with regard to the benefits of P4G, we can gain the more partnerships and more networks. And as a smart and middle-sized country, we can have more to share and we can have more to cooperate. So, in summing up, Korea places higher value on P4G. Then, Korea has launched P4G national platform on July 27th this year with 5 focus areas. And we have 2 tracks for the workload. Track 1 is national platform meeting, and track 2 is national platform sectoral meeting. So in parallel with this workflow, we will pursue our goal of P4G. And the Korea's P4G structure is just like the Danish, the structured goal area, the stakeholders, task, and whole. And on the basis of Korea's active participation in our national platform, let's look at the outcome of P4G Copenhagen Summit meeting. As the Ambassador Lehman said, it was successful with more than 800 participants from all over the world. Korean participants are our President Moon Jae-in made the keynote speech, and the water session, our Environment Minister and the CEO of K-Water has joined this session as speakers. And in energy session, President of Korean Institute of Energy Technology as speaker. And the pitch session, CEO of Korean Eco One, Ms. Lee Soo-young, she's here as panelist. And in digital platform session, from the Korean side, Executive Vice President of SK Telecom joined as panelists. So we actively joined each session with these the prominent persons in Korea. Then we had the sessions about PPP on 5 focus areas, sessions about PPP's contribution to SDGs, PPP startup pitch sessions. And we adopted the Copenhagen Commitment to Action, which was explained by Ambassador Lehmann, and the significance of P4G Copenhagen Summit for Korea. Through this first P4G Summit meeting, we announced we will continue to pursue green growth as a strategy to address climate change and achieve SDGs. And through this summit meeting, we strengthened the Korea-Denmark alliance in the environmental area, and to expand the bilateral cooperation to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And also, we will make efforts to help developing countries cope with climate change through the GGGI, the Global Green Growth Institute, and the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, and so on. And we try to expand into global markets, including North Korea, and we will enhance the inclusive by creating green jobs. Those are significance of P4G Copenhagen Summit for Korea. Then the future task of P4G, I believe, is facilitating PPP for concrete actions, because we view that the PPP is the driving force of P4G. So through the government, as I mentioned, that provides direction and the guidelines with its policies, and it is the civil society that provides creative ideas, and it is the business sector that enable green investment and take actions. Then the cooperation with the GGGI and the GCF, the P4G is an implementation partner, and GGGI is a delivery partner to map out the green growth strategies for developing countries, and GCF is a funding partner. So we have to make best use of these international organizations together with the P4G. No, okay. Last but not least, we are expected to have the second P4G Summit meeting in 2020. And I'd like to point out that the year of 2020 will be the historic moment in climate change regime. As you are well aware, the Kyoto Protocol, which is called Old Climate Regime, will be terminated in 2020.
Okay.
And the Paris Agreement, which is so-called the New Climate Regime, will start the 1st of January of 2021. So I think 2020 will be the historic moment in climate change regime. And also, we have the duty and we have the responsibility to make sustainable development of P4G through the second P4G Summit meeting in 2020. As far as Korea is concerned, Korea will do everything possible on its part for the success of the second P4G Summit meeting in 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really do hope we see it in the near future. Well, I understand the first P4G Summit produced a so-called Copenhagen Commitment. And if I had to single out just one most important keyword, that would be private-public partnership. So in that regard, I'd like to hear from Pin Mortensen, who is running that important PPP platform. What are the lessons we can learn from your achievement?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kim, and thank you for inviting me to come here today. I will just, I think I'll start out by saying State of Green is the national platform for P4G in Denmark. It's a little bit different, the setup, from the one you have chosen here in Korea, but I'll spend a few moments on telling you what the setup is and where it originated. State of Green, as such, as you said correctly, is a public-private partnership. We're not for profit. We were set up 10 years ago in preparation for Denmark hosting the UN Climate Conference in 2009, the COP15. And we have, as you can see on the slide here, we have from the public side, we have 4 different ministries. We have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Energy, Utilities and Climate, the Ministry of Environment and Food, and the Ministry of Industry, Business and Financial Affairs. They represent the public sector among our owners. From the private side, we have the 4 major business organizations in Denmark. One of them, the Confederation of Danish Industry. You have a counterpart here, the Korean, I think it's called the Business Association of Korea or something like that. FKI, I think the name is. And the idea is, from the outset, was that we should showcase the green transition in Denmark going back to the early 1970s. You can see here on the slide here what has taken place in Denmark since 1980. It all started actually with the first oil crisis in 1973, when Denmark was totally dependent on imported oil. We didn't have any natural resources. We had not found oil at the time. So imported oil was the only source of energy, more or less, and from one country in particular. The first oil crisis really turned that around over the next decade. And here you can see the result. We moved into a new situation where we focused heavily on energy conservation and on renewable energy. And since then, our GDP in real terms has increased by approximately 70%, while we have been able to keep our total energy consumption flat, or even a small decrease. And at the same time also, we have been able to decrease our CO2 emissions. So, popularly said, you can put it this way: we have been able to decouple economic growth since 1980 from the use of energy. And that was a really good story to pitch internationally to other countries who were looking for inspiration. And that really was the background for setting up State of Green. We've been telling that story since 2008, and I would say we got a boost really again this year, early in June of this year, when the Danish government, together with all other parties in Parliament, decided on a new energy agreement. It follows up on an agreement from 2012, and it spells out again that Denmark has a vision to be totally independent of imported oil and fossil fuels in general by 2050. But also now we expect that by 2030, 55% of the total energy consumption will be covered by renewables. So in approximately 10-12 years' time, we will have reached 55%, consisting mainly of bioenergy and wind. Now, that was a background, and when P4G was established, the Danish government looked around and discussed what kind of national platform should we have. And they decided to point to State of Green as a natural place for hosting the national platform. We already had both the public stakeholders and the private stakeholders. What we were missing was the civil society. So we decided to set up an advisory panel consisting of universities, NGOs, a couple of municipalities also, and together with our usual stakeholders, they consist, or they make up the background for our advisory panel, and we refer to them on major issues. How do we work? What should we do? Things like that. So far, we have offered support to public-private partnerships in Denmark. We have assisted them in writing applications for funding from the P4G funds. We have tried to mobilize support among the stakeholders, not least the civil society stakeholders, to get them interested also in coming up with proposals for new partnerships. So in general, you could say we try to underscore the importance of public-private partnerships in every aspect, and we also try to make business understand that there is a good case to continue here. Thank you very much.
So as a ally of Korea, can you borrow State of Green to Korea?
Well, we would actually we gathered all the national platforms on the first day in Copenhagen, including the Korean platform, and we had some very good exchanges. And I
know
think
it is quite inclusive.
Yes.
PPP platform.
Yeah.
이수영 사장님, I understand you took part in the P4G summit. So what was your impression on it? And well, how and what would you recommend to Korea as a whole to have that kind of PPP platform to realize the true spirit of P4G and your carbon solution related business?
Thank you. It was a great honor and pleasure for me to participate in P4G. I knew Denmark has the #1 companies in energy solutions like Danfoss and Pump, Granfoss, and one of the biggest wind power company, Vestas. I knew those companies, but while participating in P4G, I found out the State of Green actually organized all the trips of 800 participants. And I asked how many people are working there. I was amazed at 12 people. And what's the budget? Is $3 million a year. Can you imagine that 12 people can arrange all the visits of 800 visitors? That's the power of Denmark, and I really envy them.
Okay.
For the past years, everybody heard about blockchain. I've been working in environment business for a decade, but wanted to think about the new technologies. So think about internet. Before internet, we searched for the data and information, but the internet changed whole lifestyle. And after that, smartphones. It's totally different experience. And everybody says that after the smartphones, blockchain is the technology that will change whole life experiences. So I studied about blockchain quite a bit with my partner, the Dali chain, Wei Ledger, the Steve Chu participated in this conference. And everybody knows that Korea has the great system like carbon points. So if I reduce electricity at home, then I can be rewarded with the carbon points. But in the municipal governments and also in the Ministry of Environment, actually needs 30 or 40 people to manage all the systems. So this is the current situation. And blockchain has the typical, very unique function that has distributed ledger. So all the informations that was controlled and managed by the central, the organizations, which needs about 30, 40 people to manage it, that can be transferred to distributed ledger, which can be stored individually and don't need those 30 or 40 people. So the carbon points, which is existing right now, can be maximize the efficiency by introducing blockchain technology. And the second part, in Korea, we also have the eco-label products. And also, for managing the eco-label products, Ministry of Environment spends about $3 million a year having 40 people to operate. And in reality, those eco-label products are not that much attractive enough to motivate the customers to buy products with eco points or other cash. However, with blockchain, also has the unique function of smart contract. So if the user evaluates the products and make a comment, then it can has the rank. And based on the ranking, it can be categorized as eco-label because that's the real experiences of customers has. And customers actually validates the eco-friendly function. So I think blockchain technology can motivate more people on the climate change. So myself, we try to develop the app which actually incentivize people's climate actions, such as reducing the electricity at home, not to use disposable cups, and try to use the public transportations. And based on my climate actions, I can be rewarded with the points or tokens. And even though this is just a pilot scale and not activated, I found myself doing climate actions at home. I try to turn off the lights as much as possible, and I feel very guilty if I use the disposable cups at coffee shops. So I think this blockchain technology can change the people's behavior, and I do hope that it can be introduced. And thinking about the public-private partnership of Denmark, that's the 55% of government and 45% of private. So why don't we, like Seoul metropolitan cities or Jeju Island, will put 55% of budget, and the other, private companies like us will put 45% of budget. And with the budget, we will incentivize, we will subsidize the developers of blockchain applications and make them operate so that the blockchain technology can be developed and upgraded while giving the incentive to the citizens to do more. So this public-private partnership is very necessary. A lot of people think about the ICOs, the tokens, but probably we can start from this blockchain technology with the public-private partnership, changing the current carbon points systems utilizing blockchain technology. And I do hope that coalition of our common future can initiate this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. To my knowledge, Lee Soo-young is now building up a kind of very unique public-private partnership with local governments and civil society organization. I hope to see it happen in a successful way. Well, next year will be very meaningful year for both countries, between Denmark and Korea. It will be 60th anniversary of having formal diplomatic ties. And we have another very special dimension. Since 2011, Denmark and Korea and Denmark forged a very unique, very unusual partnership, which is alliance on green growth. So Rao, as an independent scholar, how would you evaluate that kind of unique, unusual partnership or friendship between the two countries, and what would be the future tasks for both countries to realize deep cooperation?
Thanks. Thanks for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here, and always as a researcher, it's also great that policymakers and people outside university really notice your research. So I would like to begin by saying that what I found in my research about green growth and Korea and Denmark's partnership is that it's really unusual. I term it hybrid diplomacy because it combines many different ways of doing things. It's the summit approach of getting different types of actors together is really new and exciting. But it also bringing new types of actors together in these partnerships raises new questions. And just think about it. We have the normal state or the governments involved. We have businesses, but states and businesses are different. Also within, there are big businesses, there are global businesses, there are small and local businesses. States are big and small. They're developing countries in between. States are very different. But we also have other actors like cities. They are also different. We have civil society actors. We have insurance companies. We have development banks. And we have other like pension funds. And all of these different actors have different realities and also different time horizons. So a business might only look 1 month, 2, 3 months ahead strategically. A state might look, if it's a democratic state like Denmark, might look 4 years ahead. That's the next election cycle. But a pension fund invests and thinks on a 30, 40, 50-year basis. So these are the different time horizons that we need to reconcile and figure out how do we set up a governing structure. As Catherine Richardson talked about, how do we create the best governance, not the best government, but the best governance for these new partnerships. And frankly speaking, at universities, we are not really educating the right people to do this yet, because we are still focused on silos. We're still thinking in differences, in specific problems and solutions, and not cross. So we need to think about the different responsibilities, the different accountability and transparency of these new partnerships. And I think we need to bring in what we call in academic terms boundary spanners, or you could call them honest brokers. People who know the different organizations, know the different realities that they work in, can move between them and translate how these different actors see the world, see their problems, see the solutions. And I think P4G is, and 3GF and GGGI has a lot of experience with doing this, bringing these boundary spanners in, but I think we need to do that on a much more focused and strategic way if these new partnerships should succeed. So the big challenge is not really to implement and use technology and innovation. We already have technology and innovation. The big issue, the big problem is how do we work together as different actors, and that's what we need to focus on.
it is quite insightful for me to hear that we need to develop a very smart and mutual governance system for the mutual interest. Well, the next P4G summit will be held in 2020. And 2020 is really meaningful, as Ambassador Yu said. That is the year when we are going to launch new climate regime following the Paris Agreement. And so having said that, we are going to have the P4G summit in line with the new climate regime. So as we don't have much time, actually we ran out of time, every speaker, every panel has only 1 or 2 minutes for your final messages. So how can we make the P4G summit in the year 2020 truly successful? I'd like to hear from Ambassador Yu first. How about hosting the second summit in Korea? How about it? Korea will do everything possible, right?
Thank you,
I
Professor Kim. Yeah. Well, I view that for the successful the P4G Summit meeting in 2020, we need 3 things, which are the best practice,
right,
and the fundraising. And the more driving force of P4G, the leadership. So until 2020, we need time, and we need make the best practice, and we need more fundraising, and we need more driving force of the P4G leadership. And Korea should be a part of the driving force of P4G the leadership through hosting the second P4G Summit meeting in 2020, I hope.
Okay,
no.
Thank you. That would be enough. That would be enough. I'm glad to feel your kind of commitment and willingness. Okay, that will be, okay. How about Korea's another ambassador, Lemon?
No, definitely we have to build on the success that came out of Copenhagen, and I think we have set something in motion that is like a snowball, which will just grow bigger, and because the business see very clear opportunities here. We know that the price tag to combat climate change is enormous. $5 trillion per year is just one number being mentioned. But the good news is that finance and capital is available. So we need to bring financial institutions in. They need to see that investments can also make return, that there are big good business cases, and then we need to focus a lot on the cities, because cities have a big responsibility. This is where the bulk of the CO2 emissions take place. So bringing in more cities, having close partnership, for example, and hopefully even closer with Seoul metropolitan government, I think will set a fantastic standard for P4G.
Yeah.
Thank you.
City is becoming more important actor international stage, and city should play bigger role in expanding and vitalizing the PPP spirit. So, Finn.
Yeah, I can only second what the 2 ambassadors have said, and then I think one key element will also be that we will be able in 2020 to showcase good, concrete examples of partnerships that have been formed as P4G partnerships that are already well underway, both when it comes to startup partnerships and when it comes to scale-up partnerships. We need to show concrete action. Thank you.
Thank you.
I decided my second home is Denmark. So I really enjoyed a lot, and I think I will enjoy a lot next year to meet many Danish companies and also liaison with my Korean friends together.
Okay, thank you. Rao?
Well, I think it's important to realize that in the name P4G, it's focused on the new Agenda 2030. So we have the Paris Agreement there. So take a look at Agreement Article 6, which encourages other partnerships than state and state action. How do we do that? So P4G should focus on Paris Agreement Article 6, and it should focus on SDG number 17 on partnerships. And in the SDG 17, partnerships are always including developing countries, finance, capacity building, etc. And so partnerships need to, if they're to achieve SDG 17 and other SDGs and Paris Agreement, they need to include South partners from the beginning, and they need to include, I think, capacity building from the beginning. So that should be a key focus.
Okay, thank you. Well, the lovely part of Denmark, it is about happy ending, and I hope this concluding session ended happily. And I like to conclude this session by saying, divided we fall, but united we stand. That is another expression of partnership. And that applies not just to both countries, but to all of us here and all the parties in the world. So let's do the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please give them a warm round of applause.